The ship was called the Starbound Venture, and it had traveled through the dark spaces between stars for nearly 40 years. It was old and tired, and its metal walls creaked and groaned like the bones of an ancient creature. The Valhari who called it home were proud of their vessel, even though it broke down more often than it worked properly. The Valhari were a species of predators. They stood tall, nearly 7 feet high, with bodies covered in short fur that ranged from silver to deep gray. Their faces looked like the great cats that once roamed the plains of Earth, with sharp teeth and eyes that glowed like melted gold. They were hunters by nature, warriors by choice, and they had ruled their corner of the galaxy for thousands of years. That Captain Rissa stood at the bridge of his ship and watched the newest crew member walk up the boarding ramp. She was small, so terribly small. Her skin was soft and bare, without fur or scales to protect her. She had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons at all. She was human. Her name was Yuna, and she carried a heavy bag of tools over her shoulder. Her black hair was tied back in a simple knot, and her dark eyes moved quickly, taking in everything around her. She walked with quiet confidence, not afraid but not aggressive either. Just calm, steady. Rissa did not like humans. He did not trust them. They were strange creatures from a small blue planet on the edge of explored space. They were weak and fragile, and yet somehow they had spread across the galaxy like water spreading through cracks in stone. No one understood how they had survived this long, but Rissa needed her. His ship was falling apart, and none of his crew knew how to fix it properly. The Valhari were hunters, not builders. They could take apart prey with their claws, but they could not take apart an engine and put it back together. Humans could. Humans could fix anything, or so the story said. Yuna stopped at the top of the ramp and looked at the Valhari crew watching her. There were 12 of them, all tall and powerful, all staring at her with those golden predator eyes. She knew what they were thinking. They were thinking she looked like food. She smiled anyway. "Permission to come aboard, Captain," she said. Her voice was calm and polite. Rissa's ears flattened slightly. He did not like her smile. It showed too many teeth for someone with such small, blunt teeth. "Permission granted," he growled. "Your quarters are on the lower deck. The engine room is yours. Stay out of our way, and we will stay out of yours." Yuna nodded. Understood. She walked past him without flinching, without lowering her eyes the way prey should when facing a predator. Rissa watched her go and felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. He did not know what it was. It might have been respect. He hoped it was not. The first few days were difficult. The Valhari crew avoided Yuna like she carried disease. They whispered about her when they thought she could not hear. They called her soft skin and prey walker and other names that were not kind. Yuna heard all of it. She pretended she did not. She spent her time in the engine room, learning the ship's systems. The Starbound Venture was old technology, at least 50 years behind modern designs. Its power core leaked radiation. Its life support system rattled and coughed. Its navigation computer had been patched so many times that the original code was buried under layers of desperate fixes. Yuna loved it. She loved broken things. She always had, ever since she was a little girl on Earth, taking apart her grandmother's old radio just to see how it worked. There was something beautiful about understanding how pieces fit together, about finding the fault and making it right. Every machine told a story. Every wire and circuit was a word in a language most people could not read. She worked quietly, alone, and she did not complain. She fixed the small things first. A flickering light in the corridor. A door that stuck halfway open. A water recycler that had been making strange sounds for months. The Valhari noticed, though they did not say anything. They simply stopped calling her Prey Walker quite so often. On her third day, Yuna noticed the cub. She was working under a console in the cargo bay, replacing a burned-out relay when she felt eyes on her back. She turned her head slowly and saw a small face peeking out from behind a stack of metal containers. The cub was tiny, no bigger than a human child of 6 or 7 years. Her fur was pale gray with darker stripes, and her eyes were huge and round, filled with curiosity. She watched Yuna with the intense focus of a young predator studying something new and strange. Yuna knew who she was. The cub's name was Talai, and she was the daughter of Kira, the ship's navigator. Yuna had seen them together at meals, the mother tall and proud, the daughter small and quiet. Talai always sat close to her mother and never spoke to anyone else. Yuna had also noticed that Talai never spoke to her father. She had asked one of the crew about it, a gruff old Valhari named Borm, who was less hostile than the others. He had told her that Talai's father was dead, lost in a raid 3 years ago. The cub had been very young then. She probably did not remember him at all. Why Yuna pretended not to see Talai watching her. She had been warned about Valhari children. They were raised differently than human children. They were expected to learn by watching, not by asking. They were expected to be strong, independent, and self-sufficient. To offer help to a Valhari cub was an insult to the parents. It suggested they could not raise their child properly. So Yuna did not offer help. She did not call out to Talai or wave or try to make friends. She simply worked, calm and steady, and let the cub watch. But sometimes, when she finished a task and stood up to stretch her back, she would look toward the containers and smile. Just a small smile, quick and warm, before she turned away. Talai always ducked back into hiding when Yuna smiled. But she always came back the next day. And Yuna always smiled again. It was a strange beginning. A human and a cub, watching each other from a distance, neither one reaching out. The beginnings are often strange. The important thing is what comes after. And what came after would change everything. Talai had a secret. She kept it hidden in the bottom of her satchel, wrapped in a piece of soft cloth that had once belonged to her father. It was a toy, a mechanical creature shaped like a 6-legged insect. It was small enough to fit in her palm, and it was the most precious thing she owned. Her father had made it for her when she was just a baby. He had carved the shell from scrap metal and painted it in shades of blue and green, like the lakes of their home world. He had built tiny circuits inside that made its legs move and its eyes glow. When she pressed the button on its back, it would walk across the floor and make a soft chirping sound, like a little living thing. Talai did not remember her father's face. She had been too young when he died. But she remembered his hands, big and warm, holding the toy out to her. She remembered his voice, deep and gentle, saying words she could not quite recall anymore. And she remembered the feeling of being safe and loved, even though she could not remember what that looked like. The toy was all she had left of him. She never showed it to anyone. Among the Valhari, attachment to objects was considered weakness. Warriors did not cling to things. They let go and moved forward. Talai knew this. She had been taught this since she was old enough to understand words. But she could not let go of the toy. She could not let go of her father, so she kept it hidden. And she only took it out when she was alone. And she never told anyone, not even her mother, on the day it broke. Talai was playing in the cargo bay. She had found a quiet corner between 2 large containers where no one could see her. She sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor and took out the toy, unwrapping it carefully from its cloth. She pressed the button and watched it walk across her palm, its little legs clicking against her fur. She smiled. For a moment, she was not alone. For a moment, her father was still with her. Then she heard footsteps. Talai panicked. She grabbed for the toy, trying to hide it quickly, but her paws were clumsy with fear. The toy slipped from her grasp and fell to the floor. The sound it made when it hit the metal was small, but to Talai, it was the loudest sound in the universe. She froze, staring down at the broken pieces. The shell had cracked open along one side. One of the legs had snapped off completely. The eyes flickered once, twice, and then went dark. The footsteps passed by without stopping. Whoever it was had not seen her, but Talai did not notice. She did not notice anything except the broken toy in front of her dot. She picked up the pieces with trembling paws. The leg was bent and twisted. The crack in the shell ran deep, exposing the delicate wires inside. When she pressed the button, nothing happened. The toy was dead. Talai wanted to scream. She wanted to cry out, to run to her mother, to beg someone to fix it. But she was Velhari. She was supposed to be strong. She was supposed to handle her own problems. She was supposed to let go of things that were broken and move forward. She could not do any of those things. Instead, she wrapped the pieces back in the cloth, slowly and carefully, as if they might break even more if she was not gentle. She put them back in her satchel. Then she stood up and walked out of the cargo bay with her head held high and her face empty of expression. No one noticed anything wrong. No one saw the storm inside her. That night, Talai could not sleep. She lay in her sleeping pod, staring at the dark ceiling, thinking about the toy. It was broken. It was gone. Just like her father. Just like everything good in her life. She thought about throwing it away. That was what a strong Velhari would do. Let go. Move forward. Do not cling to broken things. But she could not do it. Instead, in the middle of the night, when the ship was quiet and everyone was asleep, Talai crept out of her sleeping pod. She walked through the dark corridors, silent as a shadow, until she reached the engine room. There was a ventilation panel near the entrance, low to the ground. Talai had found it weeks ago while exploring the ship. The panel was loose, and behind it was a small empty space, just big enough to hide something. She took the wrapped bundle from her satchel and pushed it into the space behind the panel. Then she pressed the panel back into place and stepped away. No one would find it there. No one would know. The broken toy would stay hidden, and Talai would pretend it did not exist. She walked back to her sleeping pod and climbed inside. She pulled her blanket over her head and pressed her face into the soft fabric. And then, finally, alone in the darkness where no one could see, she cried. She cried for her toy. She cried for her father. She cried for all the things she had lost and all the things she would never get back. She cried until her chest ached and her throat burned and her eyes had no more tears to give. Then she lay still, empty and exhausted, and waited for morning dawn when the lights came on and the ship woke up. Talai woke up too. She washed her face and brushed her fur and went to breakfast with her mother. She sat quietly and ate her food and did not speak. Kira looked at her daughter with worried eyes. "Are you feeling well?" she asked. "I am fine," Talai said. Her voice was flat and empty. Kira did not believe her. But she did not push. Among the Velhari, everyone had the right to their own pain. Everyone had the right to their own silence. She reached out and touched Talai's head gently. "I am here if you need me," she said. Talai nodded but did not look up. She did not need anyone. She could handle this alone. She was Velhari, but deep inside, in the place where she had hidden her heart, along with her father's toy, she was breaking too. Yuna found the bundle 5 days later. She was running a full diagnostic on the air filtration system, checking every vent and panel for blockages and leaks. It was boring work, the kind of work that made her mind wander. But she did it carefully anyway, because careful work was the only kind worth doing. She was crouched near the entrance of the engine room, scanning a ventilation panel with her diagnostic tool, when she noticed something strange. The panel was slightly loose. Not broken, just not fitted properly. It was the kind of thing most people would ignore, but Yuna was not most people. She pulled the panel aside and looked into the dark space behind it. There was something there. A small bundle, wrapped in cloth. Yuna's first thought was trouble. Contraband, maybe. Stolen goods. Something dangerous that someone was trying to hide. Her second thought was curiosity. The bundle was too small to be valuable cargo. Too carefully wrapped to be garbage. She reached in and pulled it out. The cloth was soft and old, worn thin in places from years of handling. Yuna unwrapped it slowly, gently, and found the broken toy inside. She held it up to the light and studied it. A mechanical insect with 6 legs, painted in faded blues and greens. One leg was missing. The shell was cracked. The eyes were dark and lifeless. It was old. Maybe 20 years old, maybe more. The craftsmanship was simple but beautiful, made by hand with care and love. Someone had spent many hours building this little thing. Someone had wanted it to be special, and someone had loved it. Yuna could tell by the worn patches on the shell where small paws had held it over and over again. She could tell by the careful wrapping, the gentle way it had been hidden. This was not garbage. This was treasure. She thought of Tylai, the little cub who watched her from behind containers. The little cub who clutched her satchel like it held something precious. The little cub who had stopped smiling a few days ago, whose eyes had gone dull and empty. Yuna understood. She sat there for a long moment, holding the broken toy in her hands, thinking. She could ask about it. She could find Tylai and return it. But she knew enough about Velhari culture to know that would be wrong. Tylai had hidden the toy for a reason. She was ashamed of it, or ashamed of breaking it, or ashamed of caring so much about something so small. If Yuna exposed her secret, it would only make things worse. But if Yuna did nothing, the toy would stay broken. And so would Tylai. Yuna made her decision. She wrapped the toy back in its cloth and tucked it into her pocket. Then she finished her diagnostic work and went about her day as if nothing had happened. She ate her meals alone, as always. She nodded politely to the crew members who passed her in the corridors. She did not look at Tylai, did not give any sign that she knew anything at all. But that night, when the ship was quiet and her shift was over, Yuna locked herself in her small quarters and got to work. Her room was tiny, barely big enough for a bed and a workbench. But the workbench was covered with tools, all the tools she had collected over her years as an engineer. She had soldering irons and wire cutters and magnifying glasses. She had tiny screwdrivers and delicate pliers and tubes of bonding agent. She had everything she needed. She unwrapped the toy and laid the pieces out in front of her. Then she turned on her work light and began. The first problem was the missing leg. Yuna searched through her spare parts, looking for something that would match. She found a piece of scrap metal that was close to the right shape and color. She cut it carefully, filed it smooth, and painted it with a blue-green mixture she made herself. It was not perfect. Up close, you could see the difference. But from a distance, it looked almost right. She attached the new leg with tiny screws and tested the joint. It moved smoothly. Good. The second problem was the cracked shell. The break ran deep, almost to the center of the toy. Yuna cleaned out the crack carefully, removing dust and debris. Then she applied bonding agent, layer by layer, filling the gap and smoothing the surface. She worked slowly, patiently, letting each layer dry before adding the next. When she was finished, she painted over the repair with the same blue-green mixture. The seam was still visible if you looked closely, but it was faint, almost invisible. The third problem was the power. Yuna opened the shell carefully and examined the circuits inside. The tiny power cell was dead, drained completely. Several wires were corroded, and one connection had come loose when the toy fell. Yuna replaced the power cell with a new one from her supplies. She cleaned the corroded wires and resoldered the loose connection. She checked every circuit, every pathway, making sure everything was working properly. Then she closed the shell and pressed the button. The toy's eyes glowed soft blue. It chirped once, a small happy sound, and took 3 wobbly steps across her palm. Yuna smiled. She worked for 2 more hours, adjusting and testing, making sure the toy moved smoothly and sounded right. By the time she was finished, her eyes were tired and her fingers were sore. But the toy was alive again. She wrapped it back in its cloth, just as carefully as it had been wrapped before. She held it in her hands for a moment, feeling its small weight. She did not know Talai. She did not know her story or her pain. But she knew what it felt like to lose something precious. She knew what it felt like to have something broken that could not be fixed. She could not bring back Talai's father. She could not heal that wound. But she could do this one small thing. And sometimes, one small thing was enough. Why Una set her alarm for early the next morning. Then she lay down on her bed and closed her eyes. She slept well that night. Better than she had slept in a long time. She had work to do in the morning. Una woke before the ship's lights turned on. The corridors were dark and silent. Everyone was still asleep, wrapped in their pods, dreaming whatever dreams the Velhari dreamed. Una moved through the shadows like a ghost, the wrapped bundle held close to her chest. She reached the ventilation panel near the engine room and knelt down. Her hands were steady as she pulled the panel aside and placed the bundle back in its hiding place. She positioned it exactly where she had found it, facing the same direction, tilted at the same angle. Then she put the panel back and walked away. She did not look back. She did not leave a note or a sign or any trace that she had been there. She simply returned to her quarters, lay down on her bed, and waited for the day to begin. She did not expect thanks. She did not want recognition. She just wanted Talai to have her toy back. That was enough. The day passed slowly. Una worked on the ship's navigation computer, untangling the mess of old code and patches. She ate her meals in the corner of the dining hall, alone as always. She nodded politely to the crew members who passed her, and she did not look for Talai, but she wondered. She wondered if the cub had found it yet. She wondered what Talai would think, what Talai would feel. She wondered if it would help. Talai found the toy that evening. She had gone to the hiding place every day since she put it there. She did not know why. The toy was broken. There was nothing to see. But she could not stop herself. Something pulled her back, again and again, to that loose panel near the engine room. Maybe she just wanted to be close to it. Maybe she just wanted to remember. She waited until her mother was busy with navigation charts, then slipped away through the corridors. The ship was quiet at this hour, most of the crew eating dinner or resting in their quarters. No one saw her creep through the shadows. No one saw her kneel in front of the panel. She pulled it aside and reached into the dark space. Her paw touched cloth. The same soft cloth. The same small bundle. She pulled it out and unwrapped it slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She expected to see the broken pieces, the cracked shell, the missing leg. She expected to feel the same sharp pain she always felt when she looked at what remained of her father's gift. But that was not what she found. The toy was whole. Talai stared at it, unable to breathe. The shell was smooth and complete. There was a new leg, painted in blue and green, attached where the old one had broken off. The cracks were gone, filled and painted over until they were almost invisible. She pressed the button. The toy's eyes glowed soft blue. It chirped, that familiar little sound she thought she would never hear again. Then it walked across her palm, its 6 legs clicking gently, alive and moving and real. Talai's vision blurred. Hot tears ran down her face, soaking into her fur. She could not stop them. She did not try. She did not understand. Things did not fix themselves. Broken things stayed broken. The universe did not give back what it took. That was the first lesson every Valhari learned, the hardest lesson. The truest lesson. But here was the toy. Whole, working, alive. Someone had fixed it. Talai looked around the empty corridor, her ears swiveling, searching for any sound. There was no one there. No sign of who had done this or why. But she thought of the human. She thought of Yuna, working quietly in the engine room. Yuna, who fixed broken things. Yuna, who smiled at her when she thought no one was looking. Yuna, who never asked for anything, never demanded anything, never tried to push her way into places she did not belong. Yuna, who must have found the toy. Yuna, who had not said a word. Talai pressed the toy against her chest, feeling its small warmth against her heart. She could still feel it vibrating slightly, still hear it chirping softly, muffled by her fur. She thought about what to do. The Valhari way would be to say nothing. Accept the gift in silence. Move forward without looking back. Strength meant not needing anyone, not owing anyone, not admitting that someone else had done something you could not do for yourself. But that did not feel right. The human had done something kind, something unexpected, something that went against everything Talai had been taught about the universe and how it worked. The human had seen a broken thing and fixed it. Not because anyone asked, not because there was any reward, just because she could. Talai did not understand humans. No one did, really. They were strange creatures from a strange world, soft and weak and somehow terrifying at the same time. The Valhari had ruled the stars for thousands of years with their strength and their claws and their pride. But humans had something else. Something the Valhari did not have a word for. Something that made them look at a broken toy hidden in a vent and say, "I should fix that." Talai wrapped the toy carefully and put it back in her satchel. She stood up and wiped her face, brushing away the tears. She would find the human tomorrow. She did not know what she would say. She did not know if she could say anything at all. But she had to try. The human had given her something precious. Not just a toy. Something more. Hope that not everything broken stayed broken forever. Hope that sometimes, when you least expected it, someone might see your pain and do something about it. Hope that she was not as alone as she had thought. Talai walked back to her sleeping pod, the toy warm against her side. That night, for the first time in days, she slept without crying, and in her dreams, she heard her father's voice, faint and far away, but somehow closer than it had been in a long time. He was saying something. She could not make out the words, but she thought, maybe, he was saying thank you. Talai spent the whole next day working up her courage. She watched the human from a distance, hiding behind containers and corners like she always did. But now it was different. Now she was not watching out of curiosity. She was watching because she was scared. Scared of what she would say. Scared of what the human would think. Scared of showing weakness. But she could not stay silent. Not after what Yuna had done. She waited until the evening, when most of the crew was eating dinner. The engine room was quiet then, empty except for the hum of machines and the soft glow of control panels. Yuna would be there alone, working as she always did. Talai crept through the corridors, her heart beating fast. She held her satchel close to her body, feeling the shape of the toy inside. It was whole now. It was alive. Because of the human. She reached the engine room door and stopped. Yuna was inside, bent over an open panel, her hands deep in a tangle of wires. She was muttering to herself, quiet words that Talai could not understand. Something about plasma regulators and outdated technology. Tala stood in the doorway, frozen. She wanted to speak, but her voice would not come. She wanted to move, but her legs would not listen. Then Yuna turned around. Their eyes met. Yuna's face showed surprise for a moment, then something softer. She pulled her hands out of the panel and wiped them on her pants. "Hello, Talai," she said. Her voice was gentle, calm. Talai opened her mouth, but no words came out. She tried again, and again nothing happened. Her throat was tight. Her paws were shaking. Slowly, carefully, she reached into her satchel and pulled out the toy. She held it up so Yuna could see. The mechanical insect, painted in blue and green, its eyes glowing softly, its legs ready to move. Whole and perfect and alive. Yuna looked at the toy. Her expression did not change. She did not smile or frown or show any surprise at all. She just looked, calm and steady, as if she saw broken toys come back to life every day. Talai took a step forward. Then another. She stopped in front of Yuna, close enough to touch, and held the toy between them. "You fixed it," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she shrugged, a small movement of her shoulders. "It was broken," she said simply. "I fix broken things. It is what I do." Talai's ears flattened against her head. Not in anger. In something else. Something she did not have a name for. But why? She asked. "You did not have to." "I did not ask. I did not even tell you it existed." Yuna knelt down so they were the same height. Her dark eyes were warm and kind. She looked at Talai the way no one had looked at her since her father died. Like she mattered. Like she was worth something. "That is not how humans work," Yuna said softly. "We do not wait to be asked. If we see something broken and we can fix it, we just do." Talai stared at her. She did not understand. Everything she had been taught said this was wrong. You did not help people who did not ask. You did not fix things that were not yours to fix. You minded your own business and expected others to do the same. But the human had not done that. The human had seen a hidden toy, a secret grief, a silent pain, and she had done something about it. Not for reward. Not for recognition. Just because she could. "I do not understand," Talai said. "Why do you care? I am nothing to you. I am just a cub. I am not even nice to you. None of us are." Yuna smiled. It was a sad smile, but also warm. "You do not have to be nice to me for me to care," she said. "That is not how caring works." Talai felt something crack inside her chest. Not a breaking. More like ice melting after a long winter. Something warm spreading through her. Something she had not felt in a very long time. She stepped forward and pressed her forehead against Yuna's shoulder. It was a Volhari gesture. The most intimate gesture her people knew. It meant trust. It meant family. It meant, "You are part of my heart now, and nothing can change that." Yuna went very still. Talai could feel her surprise, her uncertainty. Humans did not know this gesture. They did not understand what it meant. But then, slowly, gently, Yuna's arms came up and wrapped around Talai. She held the cup close, careful and warm. Like she was holding something precious. They stayed like that for a long time. Neither of them spoke. Words were not needed. Behind them, in the doorway, a shadow appeared. Kira had come looking for her daughter. She had noticed Talai slip away after dinner, and something in her mother's heart had told her to follow. Now she stood at the entrance of the engine room, watching her child embrace the human. She should have been angry. She should have been offended. A stranger, touching her cub. A human, receiving the trust gesture that was meant only for family. But Kira was not angry. She had watched her daughter fade over the past days. She had seen the light go out of Talai's eyes, the smile disappear from her face. She had not known why. Talai would not talk to her. Talai would not talk to anyone. Now she saw the toy in Talai's paw. She recognized it. She had seen it before long ago when her mate was still alive. She had thought it was lost. She understood. Yuna looked up and saw Kira standing there. Her body tensed, ready for anger, ready for punishment. But Kira did not look angry. Her golden eyes were wet, shining in the dim light of the engine room. Kira walked forward slowly. She stopped in front of Yuna and Tailai, looking down at them. Then, very slowly, she lowered her head in a deep bow. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was rough with emotion. "Thank you for seeing my daughter. Thank you for helping her when I could not." Yuna did not know what to say. She just held Tailai closer and nodded. Kira knelt down beside them and put her arms around them both, her daughter and the human who had saved her. The three of them stayed there, holding each other, while the ship hummed around them and the stars spun slowly outside. Later, the story would spread through the crew. The human who fixed things. The human who helped without being asked. The human who showed them something they had never seen before. The Volhari were proud hunters. They did not need anyone. They did not ask for help. They were strong. But maybe, just maybe, there was another kind of strength. The strength to see someone hurting and do something about it. The strength to care about strangers. The strength to fix broken things, even when no one asked. Maybe that was what made humans so strange. So confusing. So terrifying. They did not conquer with claws or weapons. They did not win with strength or speed. They won by doing the one thing that made no sense at all. They cared, and sometimes, in the cold darkness between the stars, that was the most powerful thing in the universe.